I had a client who asked me, do you know how to make something that's a little bit of a Fletcher vibe? And I said, I don't know. Let's find out. So after weeks of collaborating on Zoom, we finally finished a track, and I think it sounds pretty good.
You can catch me up on the east side, living in my high rise, tied up, looking for a good time.
And I want to show you guys how I did it. But in case you're new to this channel, hit subscribe. But yeah, I'm going to show you guys how I produced Back on My Bullshit by Micah. It is out now. I will put links in the description to it. I'm really happy with how this song turned out, and I had a lot of fun producing it. So let me break down my thought process in remaking this style of EDM rock track, I would call it. So for the main riff, we're actually using a triple tracked guitar part. These two are on the left and right, going into neural DSP Gojira. And then cutting through the middle of those two, we have the same guitar, but I'm using this patch from Modern Metal Songwriter on their Clairvoyant plugin. Just to get like some grit right in the middle. And as you can hear on the guitar bus, we're doing quite a bit of processing. Mainly we're doing this one knob pumper from waves to get that sort of sidechain movement. If I really max it out, you can hear it a lot. And then underneath all of that, we have this lead guy here. Again, using Archetype Gojira on a bit of a gainier patch with a little bit of Arturia chorus, just because I was only using a single lead line and I felt like I wanted a little bit more space on it. And on pretty much all these guitars, my general approach with the mixing chain was EQ for some general shaping, a tiny bit of compression, sort of bringing up the lower parts just a tiny bit, and then a limiter just to tame the peaks. And I feel like with that level of consistency multiplied across all of these guys, it made the guitars sound really thick. Here, let me just turn that off on all of them so you can hear what that sounds like. With them off, and with them on. It's not a night and day difference, but it just kind of keeps them consistent. They like don't stray from that point too much, which this is a really dense track and you really want to keep things from like wandering off. So those guitars are actually what are playing in the chorus, or the drop, I guess. And then here in the verses, we actually had some more ambient stuff. Which I was really happy with how it ended up sounding. I got to sneak in this Andy Summers preset in Guitar Rig, which I love. I grew up on the Police, and so being able to like fit this kind of tone into like a modern setting, it makes my soul happy a little bit. That part is double tracked, which is sort of like the main moving part of the verses. Then up here we have this ambient guy, which is me on my Strat doing some ambient stuff using this Creamy Snowflakes preset. Something I did with this patch that is kind of different from what I normally do. I grabbed the channel EQ in Ableton, super underrated plugin that I have not used enough, and I'm gonna start using it a lot more. It's just good for like broadband stuff. Like there's a high pass and a movable mid-range, and it's super simple, but it's super effective. But when I was running this lead line into this amp sim before adding that EQ, it just had this sort of like muffliness to it, and I really wanted it to be sparkly. So instead of processing it a ton after the amp, I added this channel EQ prior to the amp. So I'm actually EQing the DI going into it. I was able to bring out a bit more of that high end, tame some of the low muddiness, but it didn't necessarily feel like I was boosting the post amp signal a ton. We then have this lead line here, doing this dotted 16th note delay, which is very close to my heart. Listening to like Search the City or things like that. It's literally just a ping pong delay. I guess it would be a dotted 8th, but we're moving so fast that it feels like a 16th emotionally, if that makes sense. And to show you how much that's adding, let me take that delay off. Like, it's not a bad part, it's just very simple and minimal. And so when you layer that with a really complex delay, it almost has like a percussion layer feel that it's adding to the track. In these two sections, we're using different bass sounds. In the main drop, it's massive. It sounds like this. And I got that from layering up a few different sounds. The main low-end 808 sound is coming from Sublab. And then I'm almost processing the bass sound as if it is a heavy metal bass tone, like a Vans Warped Tour bass tone. Because here we have sub lab with our like sub octave layer. And then above that, we have this guy, which is this Reese bass thing in Ana 2. And it's just like pure mid-range, running into Decapitator, shaping it a little bit. And then above that, we have this layer that is another preset in Ana 2 called Lightsaber Wub Bass. And all those guys layered together makes this really thick bass that just kind of cuts through the mix. I am doing a lot of processing on it, some Dyne 1. I've recently started using Kramer Pi on 808s and I've been really happy with it. And then near the end of the mixing stage, I just wanted this like 100 range to pop out a little bit more. So I used some R bass on it. And then in the verses and pre-chorus, we're kind of using the same Reese bass, but we're not high passing it as much. And we're actually letting it take the role of like a bass. And then with the drums, we have these like modern sort of EDM trap drums mixed with live drums. So we were using this OSTD meatball kick, which I got from Splice. It's from the Drip Pack, I believe. Super, super aggressive kick. And as you can see, I was processing the crap out of it. A little bit of transient shaping, a bit of max bass to bring out the low end a bit, some Decapitator, just sort of lightly blended in to give it a little bit of like saturation. Honestly, I would recommend that if you have Decapitator, go to the user's guide and like look through all these different distortion types because it's a super versatile plugin once you learn how to use it. Obviously, I'm using it pretty aggressively throughout most of the elements in this track, but it's really practical. But then, yeah, we have this sort of reverbed rim sound, which is just a clap, high pass, low pass with some vintage verb on it. Then we have our main snare, which is this insect snare, also from that Drip Pack. Some trap hat loops. And where things get really crazy is the drop, because as you can hear, layering it up with this snare, which is just the most aggressive Neve distorted snare I could find. And then I ran it into some SBL twin tube for some even more distorted goodness. And then I wanted to add a little bit of a specific reverb sound to this snare, and I didn't want to route up a send bus, so I just put a reverb on it. I honestly feel like adding a reverb to a snare is, when done correctly, the best way to get it to stand out in a mix. You just got to make sure you're watching your pre-delay, your decay, and then blending in the mix so that it almost has the vibe of a room mic. And then a cashmere clap, and then the mix wave kit for all of our cymbals. It looks like we're just using the hi-hat and the trash cymbal, which is really fun. And then just an insane amount of risers and special effects. For synths, we honestly don't have that much. Just have these keys guys here, which add this like nice ambience to everything. And then I have this guy, which if I take off all the filters, it sounds like this. And I got that from running a really distorted ambient guitar thing through Paul X Stretch, which I found from a Venus Theory video. It's this weird, like, granular resampler thing. I honestly don't understand most of what it does. You hit record and you play your sound, you hit stop, and once you've recorded it in, you get this like weird ghostly effect. And so you can come up with some really cool things by running certain melodic elements through that and then rendering them out and then putting more effects on them. Some other fun things that I did for the production were these sort of chopped up vocal synths. So this one here, that's a Kara loop from Splice running into Little Altar Boy, running into a Rat Pedal plugin. So without it, with it. This is a sample that I made playing my Jazz Master through a really fun fuzz pedal that a buddy gave me, and just dropped that in as is, I think. And then this is also that Kara sample with the Rat Pedal, but it's brighter and there's no filtering on it, so it almost sounds like a different sample. That's the same guitar Jazz Master sample, but I chopped it up and then had it play this sort of rhythm by taking this hit and these last two and transposing them an octave up and keeping this original one the way it was. And then I think the only thing we have left are vocals.
You can catch me up on the east side, then in my high rise.
My vocal chain that I've been using lately is this guy, so I'll just go through my vocal chain for anyone who hasn't seen it before. We go into an 1176 to level the vocal out a bit.
You can catch me up on the east side.
Little bit of de-esser.
You can catch me up on the east side.
Doing some very basic broadband stuff with Pro Q.
You can catch me up.
Doing a lot of heavy lifting with a virtual mix rack from Slate.
You can catch me up on the east side.
Doing some aggressive compression with the 1176, some rounder stuff with the optical compressor, and then a bunch of drive here on the virtual channel strip, going into a little bit of RVox.
You can catch me up on the east side.
Another Pro Q just to sort of dynamically control some of the frequencies in the vocal, like the S's or the rumble that gets sort of brought out when you use a lot of compression.
You can catch me up on the east side.
And then a little bit of MoTT to sort of clean it up a bit.
You can catch me up on the east side.
Doing a little bit of Pultec at the end.
You can catch me up on the east side.
You can get this like cool color just running it through the tubes of a Pultec, but I did actually boost a bit of low end and high end, it looks like. I'm pretty much only using a vocal widener on the main vocal, and I'm only using it a little bit. So like if you see here, it's like barely up a bit.
Hey, you made me.
But if I turn it all the way up, you can really hear it.
Hey, you made me. You can catch me up on the east side.
Just to give it a little bit of width. And then we are running it through multiple effects, all of which are dynamic. So either they have track spacer on them that's sidechained to the main vocal and pulling down these mid-range frequencies, or I'm using something like utility to just automate the effect off for certain sections.
Hey, you made me. You can catch me up on the east side.
So our main sound is this Valhalla vintage verb with a little bit of de-esser before it in shelf mode, a little bit of shaping EQ after that, and then again, some track spacer. I feel like it's really important to do that because with a track that is as dense as this, I feel like it's important to tame those frequencies with reverbs because I love using a ton of reverb, but there are points where it can like completely destroy the clarity of a mix. And so it's like this balance of like the mid-range warmth that you get from adding reverb to stuff and having clarity in the mix. And then a couple of other like fun vocal parts.
You can have this.
Which I got from using Bounce in Place, which I just have on my master bus all the time. And I hit 9 on my keyboard, so it will render whatever track I have soloed down as its own audio file. I just find that it's easier to do that instead of trying to like copy and paste a whole track with all this giant chain stuff just to get like this one little blip. But anyway, I'm using Futzbox by Mick DSP, sort of get like this phone effect. So here's the dry vocal.
You can have this.
Going to the reverb a lot, using some Futzbox.
You can have this.
Which is awesome for all of the like annoying filtery stuff. Using some L1 to level it out.
You can have this.
Using a ducking Valhalla delay.
You can have this.
I love that Valhalla has a ducking knob that you just turn on because I am tired of like automating delays all the time. And then running into a bit of ROM.
You can have this.
Which I was okay with being excessive with because this is like a point in the song where this is literally the only vocal. So it has a lot of space it can take. And yeah, after doing all of that, this is what the final track sounds like.
Playing that victim to your friends. That's funny, you're still my DMs. You fucked around and I found out you blew it. All fun and games till I'm back on my bullshit. Told me I was crazy. Well, that's the way you made me. You can catch me up on the east side, then in my high rise. Tied up, fucking for a good time. Don't match my vibe, a sign, yeah, I'm a bad bitch. See my name in lights, you can have it.
But yeah, that's back on my bullshit. If you guys want to go check it out, I'll put the link in the description. Also, go follow Michaela on all of her socials and her Spotify and stuff like that. She's a really talented artist, and it was really fun to work on this. But yeah, if you guys have any specific songs from modern pop music that are guitar-based, I would love to recreate them and do a breakdown video on. But yeah, I will be seeing you guys next week.